"Get out, Mom. My fiancé doesn't want you here." My son's voice, sharp and cold, sliced through the festive music. He was yelling at me. My Thomas, my only child, was yelling at me in front of 200 guests, his face a mask of rage I didn't recognize. "My name is Catherine Reed. I am 61 years old. I was a history professor for 35 years. I became a widow 9 years ago when my husband, David, died from a sudden, massive aneurysm. I have one son, Thomas, who at this moment was looking at me as if I were his worst enemy. And what I am about to tell you changed my life forever. I was standing at the entrance to the grand ballroom of our family's vineyard, looking at something I couldn't process. My own bedroom, the master suite I had shared with David, had been given to my daughter-in-law's mother, Diana. I had just returned from a week-long trip, and I walked in to find her things strewn across my room. Her silk robe on my chaise lounge, her expensive creams on my vanity, her slippers next to my bed. It was a complete annexation. "Thomas." I tried to speak, my voice choked. "That is my room." "No, Mom, enough." His eyes were bloodshot. Never in my 61 years had I seen my son look at me with such venom. "Diana is going through a really tough time. She needs peace. She needs a comfortable space, and you come in making drama over a simple room." "A simple room?" The words barely escaped. "Thomas, it's my room. It's my bed. This is my house." "It's our house," he shouted, and the word echoed, silencing the nearby guests. "We live here. Amelia and I pay the utilities. We have rights too." Every word was a nail in my coffin. "She needs comfort," he continued, his voice tight. "She's your granddaughter's grandma. Amelia is devastated seeing her mother suffer, and all you can do is think about yourself." "But if you find it so terrible to help," he interrupted, "if you can't have a little empathy, if your comfort is more important than the well-being of this family." He paused, his gaze sweeping over me with a contempt I never thought possible. "Then leave. Nobody is forcing you to stay. If you find it so awful, you can leave." The silence that followed was absolute. "You can leave." Those 3 words, they erased me. They turned me into a stranger in my own home, the home that had been in my family for 4 generations. He was kicking me out for his mother-in-law. Amelia, my daughter-in-law, appeared in the hallway, holding my granddaughter, Sophia, who was sleeping, oblivious. Amelia didn't say a word. She just looked at me, her face a perfect mask of strained sympathy, an expression that clearly said, "Don't make this difficult. You have to understand." I wanted to scream. I wanted to remind Thomas, who had stayed up with him for weeks when he had pneumonia, who had sold her own mother's jewelry to help pay for his Ivy League tuition, who had held his hand at his father's funeral as he shook with a grief so deep he couldn't stand. But I said nothing. I kept silent, because there are silences that weigh more than 1,000 words, and mine weighed 30 years of unconditional love that had just been spat on. I bent down and picked up my suitcase. I was still in my travel clothes. I had just driven 6 hours to get home. To this. I gave my son one last look. This man I didn't recognize, this stranger with Thomas's face, and I left. I walked down the grand staircase, one hand on the polished mahogany rail. Each step was a memory. Here, I had carried him when he was learning to walk. Here, he had fallen and scraped his knee. Here, we had sat together on hot summer afternoons. I could feel his gaze on my back, but I didn't turn around. If I looked at him one more time, I would have shattered. I walked out the front door, the same door my grandfather had built, the same door I had crossed with a newborn Thomas, my heart overflowing. I walked aimlessly down the long, cypress-lined drive. My legs moved on their own. I reached the small town square. I sat on a bench, the same one where I used to sit with David on Sundays. The same one where I watched Thomas play as a child, when he still called me Mommy with a voice that was now just a ghost. I took my phone from my purse. My fingers were trembling. I dialed a number I knew by heart. Benjamin Cole, my late husband's best friend and our family's lawyer. "Catherine?" His voice was surprised. "Benjamin." My voice was strangely calm. It was the calm of the eye of the storm. I need you to draft a legal notice. An urgent one. I have tenants on my property who need to vacate in 24 hours. There was a long silence. Catherine, he said, his voice cautious. Are we talking about Thomas and his family? Yes. Are you absolutely sure? I saw Thomas's eyes again, filled with contempt. I heard his voice. You can leave. I am completely sure. I'll stop by in an hour with the documents, he said. Where are you? The Willows Inn, room 203. I hung up. I sat on that bench and watched the afternoon fade. The church bells rang 6 o'clock. What Thomas didn't know, what none of them imagined, was that my silence was not weakness. It was the silence before the storm. And in the next 24 hours, my son was going to discover something he had apparently forgotten. That I wasn't just his mother. I was the sole and legal owner of that vineyard, and that there are lines you do not cross. The Willows Inn was a perfectly nice hotel, but it smelled of generic lavender and loneliness. I sat on the edge of the stiff, quilted bedspread, and for the first time, the tears came. I wasn't crying for me. I was crying for what we had lost. Because there was a time, not so long ago, when Thomas and I were a team. He was born after 18 hours of labor. My husband, David, never left my side. Thomas was an affectionate child. He's a mama's boy. David would laugh, and it was true. We had a bond that felt unbreakable. I remember the afternoons after school. I'd come home tired from teaching, and he'd be at the window. Mommy's home. He'd launch himself into my arms, as if I'd been gone for years. David was a builder. We didn't have much, but we had this land, this vineyard, left to me by my father. It was beautiful, sprawling, and deeply in debt. For years we lived in a tiny apartment, saving every penny. Someday, David would say, we'll build our own house on that hill, Kate, a place for Thomas to run. It took us 3 years to build it. We did it ourselves. On weekends, David would lay bricks, and I would mix cement. Thomas, then 11, would play among the half-finished walls. This will be my room, right, Dad? The day we finished, the 3 of us stood in the empty living room and cried. It's ours, Kate, David said. Completely ours. No one can ever take this from us. We ate our first dinner on the floor. Hot dogs. We toasted with sodas. To this house, David said. To this family. The years passed. Thomas grew up. He was a good boy. Responsible, loving. When he was 17, David started getting headaches, vicious ones. We thought it was stress. One Sunday, he put his hand to his head, looked at me with a strange, surprised expression, and collapsed. An aneurysm. He was gone before the ambulance arrived. My world ended. Thomas, just 17, became my support. He held me. He handled the funeral. It's okay, Mommy, he'd whisper. I'm here. You're not alone. That promise saved my life. He went to college. He got a job in finance. And then, 6 years ago, he met Amelia. At first, I liked her. She was polite, pretty. They got married 2 years later, right in our garden. I was so happy. When Sophia was born, my joy was complete. They were living in a small, expensive city apartment. Amelia was always complaining. Why don't you move in with me? I offered. The house is too big for me alone. Sophia can have the yard. You can save money. Thomas's eyes filled with that look of gratitude I knew so well. Are you sure, Mom? Completely, I'd said. I miss having life here. They moved in, and for a year, it was wonderful. But then she arrived. Diana, Amelia's mother. Her husband had left her. She came for a weekend, then a week, then 2. And with every visit, I felt myself being erased. Amelia's tone changed. Thomas stopped asking about my day. I became invisible in my own home, but I said nothing. Now, sitting in that hotel room, I understood. I had lost my son long before he yelled at me. I had lost him in 1,000 tiny, silent concessions. There was a knock. It was Benjamin, the envelope in his hand. Catherine, he said, are you sure? I wiped my tears. More sure than I've ever been. I signed the papers. and with each signature, I felt something in my spine turn to steel. My son had forgotten that actions have consequences. He was about to be reminded. I didn't sleep. At 8 a.m. sharp, I was in Benjamin's car. He had insisted on coming with me. When we arrived at my house, the sun was shining. The vineyards looked beautiful. Benjamin knocked. 3 firm, loud knocks. Amelia opened the door, holding Sophia. When she saw me, her face tightened. "Catherine, we weren't expecting." "Good morning, Mrs. Hayes," Benjamin said, his voice pure legal steel. "I am Benjamin Cole. I am here to serve a legal notice." Thomas appeared, still in his pajamas, his hair a mess. When he saw me, his eyes hardened. "What is this, Mom?" I said nothing. I just stood there, my back straight. Benjamin handed him the envelope. "It is an eviction notice. You have 24 hours to vacate this property." The silence was absolute. Amelia went pale. Thomas took the envelope, his hands shaking. I watched his face as he read. Confusion, disbelief. Then, a dark, rising fury. "Is this a joke?" he hissed. "You're kicking me out?" "No," I said, my voice cold and calm. "I am reminding you whose house this is. Yesterday you kicked me out. Now you have to leave." That was different. I was angry. I didn't mean it. "You didn't mean it?" I asked. "You yelled at me. You humiliated me. You told me to leave. And it wasn't serious?" Amelia started to cry. Sophia, sensing the tension, started to cry too. "Catherine, please," Amelia pleaded. "We can't leave in 24 hours. We have a child. Where will we go?" "You should have thought of that yesterday," I said, "when you gave my room to your mother, when you treated me like a stranger." Diana, the mother-in-law, appeared at the top of the stairs. She was wearing my silk bathrobe. "What is all this noise?" she demanded. I looked up at her. "What is happening, Diana, is that you and my son and his family have 24 hours to leave my property." Her face twisted into a sneer. "How dare you? Thomas, do something." "The notice is legal and binding," Benjamin said. "If you have not voluntarily vacated by 8 a.m. tomorrow, we will proceed with a court order. You do not want that." Thomas looked at me, his face a mask of betrayal. "I can't believe you're doing this. We are your family." "Exactly, Thomas. We were family. Until you treated me like I was less important than a stranger. You chose her mother over yours. She needed help. And I was your mother." For the first time, my voice broke. "And you kicked me out like I was garbage. You traded me for her. You gave her my room, my space, my place. And when I protested, you told me to leave. Well, I left. And now, you're leaving too." Benjamin put a hand on my shoulder. "Catherine, let's go. It's done." I turned to leave. 24 hours, Thomas," I said, not looking back. "Not 1 minute more." We drove back to the hotel. I went to my room, sat on the bed, and finally, I broke. I cried harder than I had since David died, but in the middle of the sobs, my phone rang. It was my neighbor, Martha. "Catherine, sweetheart, what happened? The whole town is talking. Benjamin Cole at your house?" And Thomas looked. And then the calls didn't stop. Carol from the bakery, Rose, my old colleague, Joe, the pharmacist. One by one. "Catherine, we're on your side. What he did is unforgivable. If you need a place to stay, my guest room is yours." Thomas thought I was alone. He thought I was dependent on him. He was wrong. I had been a part of this town for 35 years. I had taught their children. I had been present in their lives. And now, they were present in mine. At 3 p.m., my phone rang. "Thomas." "Mom," his voice was pleading. "We need to talk. This is crazy. We have nowhere to go. Amelia is desperate. Her mother. Her mother has a heart condition, Mom. This stress is killing her." There it was, the excuse. "And what about my heart, Thomas? Or does that not matter?" "That's not it. You know I love you." "I don't know that, Thomas. Yesterday, it looked like you loved your mother-in-law more. She's going through a deep depression. Her husband left her." For the first time, a detail clicked. Her husband had left her. She was abandoned, in pain. I knew that pain. But then I remembered. Thomas, when your father died, who was there for me? Silence. It was you. You held me. But I never asked you to kick someone else out of their home to make me comfortable. I'm sorry. Please, Mom. Give me a chance. 24 hours, Thomas. I hung up. My hands were shaking. I wanted to give in. But another part of me, the part that was finally awake, said no. Then, a text from an unknown number. Mrs. Hayes, this is Monica, your next-door neighbor. I need to tell you something. It's about your daughter-in-law. There are things you should know. My blood ran cold. Monica arrived at my hotel room at 7 a.m. She was holding a folder. Mrs. Hayes, she said, I don't like to get involved. But this isn't right. My daughter is friends with Amelia on social media. She's been posting things for months. She handed me the first printout, a Facebook post from Amelia, from 2 months ago, tired of my husband prioritizing his mom over his own family. It's time for him to grow up and understand who his real family is now. I felt sick. There's more, Monica said. She handed me another, a private message. Amelia, I can't stand her. She's in everything. But my mom gave me a great idea. If she moves in, Catherine will get uncomfortable. She'll want to leave. And when she does, the house is ours. Friend, what if she doesn't leave? Amelia, she'll leave. Thomas will have to choose. And I know he'll choose me. The date was from 6 weeks ago. It was all a plan. And this, Monica said, her face grim. This was from 4 days ago, before your trip. Amelia to her mother, Diana. She's gone for a week. It's the perfect opportunity. Move your things into her room, all of them. When she gets back and sees you, she'll have a meltdown. Thomas will have to step in. I've been working on him. He's already convinced she's controlling. He'll choose me. I know it. I closed my eyes. I had walked right into their trap. By leaving, by serving the eviction, I was giving them what they wanted. I was the unstable, dramatic mother. I looked at the clock. 7:30 a.m. The deadline was in 30 minutes. I called Benjamin. I need you at the house, now, and I need you to bring a copy of those messages. At 7:55 a.m., I stood on my own porch. Benjamin was beside me. The door was open. Thomas was on the lawn, frantically loading suitcases into his car. Amelia was directing him, pointing. You arrived, Amelia said, a triumphant smirk on her face. Just in time to see us go. Wait, I said. What now, Mom? Thomas sighed, exhausted. Before you go, I said, there's one last thing you need to see. Amelia's smirk faltered. Benjamin, I said. Benjamin stepped forward and handed the folder to Thomas. What is this? Thomas asked. It's your wife's plan, I said. In her own words. Read it. I watched his face. I watched him read the Facebook posts. I watched him read the plan to drive me out. I watched him read the text to her mother, the one where she called him convinced. I watched his expression change from confusion to disbelief to a horrifying, dawning comprehension. Amelia? He whispered, his voice trembling. What is this? Tell me this is fake. Amelia's face was ashen. I can explain. I was just venting. You planned this? He yelled, his voice cracking. You manipulated me? You made me yell at my mother. You made me kick her out. I did it for us, Thomas, she shrieked. She was in everything. I wanted her gone. This house should be ours. The silence was absolute. Thomas dropped the folder, the pages scattering on the lawn. All those words, all those lies, exposed. You lied to me, he whispered. For months. You made me believe my mother was the problem, and all along, it was you. Thomas, she said, her voice turning manipulative again. Baby, don't, he said. He turned to me. And for the first time in days, I saw my son. His eyes were shattered. Mom, he choked out. Oh God, Mom, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. He took a step, then another, and he fell into my arms. My son, my big, strong son, sobbing like a child. I'm sorry, Mom. I didn't see. I'm so sorry. I held him. I know, I whispered. I know. This is ridiculous, Amelia spat. Are you really going to believe her? After she kicked us out? Thomas pulled away from me. He wiped his face. He turned to his wife. She had every right, he said, his voice dead. It's her house. And you. You planned this. Officer, Benjamin said quietly, this is evidence of conspiracy and fraud. Amelia, seeing it was over, grabbed her mother. Let's go, she hissed. Let's go now. No, Thomas said. No one is leaving. Not yet. He looked at me, his face a ruin of regret. Mom, I know I don't deserve it, but please, don't take Sophia away from your life. She needs you. She's not at fault. I looked at my granddaughter, now awake in Amelia's arms. I would never, I said. Thank you, he whispered. He turned to his wife. Pack your things. You and your mother are leaving. You are not welcome in this house. What? What about us? Amelia shrieked. You are my wife, he said, his voice hollow. Sophia is my daughter. We are going to therapy. We are going to see if there is anything left. But we are not doing it here, and we are not doing it while you are lying. Go. I'll find a place. He watched them pack. An hour later, their car was gone. Thomas was the last to leave. He stood on the porch, his suitcase in his hand. I'll call you, Mom, he promised. We're going to fix this. Somehow. I know, son, I said. He left. I stood on the porch of my empty, silent house. I had won. I had my house back. I had exposed the truth. But I had also lost. My son was gone. I sat in the living room, in my chair, and I cried. But in the middle of the tears, I felt something new. Peace. I had my dignity back. The next few weeks were a slow, painful process. Thomas and Amelia started therapy. I didn't hear from them much. But, as he'd promised, Thomas called every day. Short, awkward, painful conversations. How are you, Mom? I'm fine, son. And you? I'm fine. One night, 3 weeks later, he called. He was crying. She left Mom. She took Sophia and went to her mother's. She said I'd chosen you, that I was weak. I got in my car and drove to his small, sad apartment. I sat with him as he sobbed. I don't know who she is, he said. I've been married to her for 6 years, and I don't know her at all. It wasn't your fault, I said. You were manipulated. But I chose to believe her, Mom. I doubted you. Hurt people, I said. And she was hurt and afraid. It doesn't excuse it, but it explains it. He looked at me with such admiration. How can you be so compassionate? Because I'm your mother, I said. And mothers learn to forgive. It was a long road. Thomas filed for divorce. It was messy, but with the evidence, he won full custody of Sophia. Amelia, her manipulation exposed, fought and lost. 6 months after that terrible day, I was in my garden, pruning my roses. Sophia, now 4, was helping me, mostly digging in the dirt. Thomas was on the porch, fixing a loose board. He was living with me again. For now. Grandma, look! Sophia shouted, holding up a butterfly that had landed on her hand. How beautiful, my love, I smiled. Thomas sat next to me, wiping sawdust from his hands. I was thinking, Mom, about what Dad taught me. He taught me to be a good man, to admit when I'm wrong, and I forgot all of it. No, I said, taking his hand. You just got lost, but you found your way back. He looked at our hands, his large, calloused one covering mine. I'm so sorry, Mom. I know, son. We sat in silence, watching my granddaughter chase a butterfly, and I realized what my husband had known all along. A home isn't just a house, it's a legacy. It's a responsibility. Love doesn't mean sacrificing your dignity. True love, healthy love, includes boundaries. It includes the strength to say, This is not okay, even to the people you love most. I had been a good mother, but that day, I had learned to be a strong one, and in that strength, I hadn't just saved my home, I had saved my son.